Hi and welcome to the next series of videos on Unity. What we're going to have a little look at over the next couple of videos is creating a character that can shoot. We're just looking at single player to start with. We can worry about multiplayer later on. But we're just going to get a very basic character that we're actually going to create ourselves, pull in a script, and we are going to make it shoot bullets. There will be more videos later on that talk about how the bullets hit things, how the things react, whether it ends up knocking down walls or the characters or whatever that is. But for now, we're just going to get something moving around and shooting a bullet that we create. So first off, what we want to do is, you've probably got your terrain in here. I've just got a blank terrain, but you've got a terrain scene. We want to have a new scene. So I'm just going to right click here, create scene, and I'm going to call it bullet. And to get this the scene we're looking at, I double click on it. I can save my scene from before, and here we go. We've got a blank scene. There's not the terrain in there anymore. We can still see our terrain, our scene 1, our tutorial folder, but we're actually just seeing the bullet thing on the screen here. Now make sure you're in the scene view, because this is where we can change things, and we're going to first off create our character. So if I go to game object and 3D object, I'm going to create a capsule. So we're going to create pretty much a capsule shaped person with a visor. Say we see the front looks like sunglasses, a cylinder to be his gun, and that's pretty much it. Put some colours on him so he looks a bit more interesting. So I create a capsule, and you'll see it go there. And at the top we can name it. At the moment it's named capsule. Instead, I'm going to name it player. So that's the first bit. And what we then need to do is change some of these transform details for the things we're going to put in. And if we just go to 0, 0, 0. So setting it exactly in the middle of our scene. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Now we will have to reset those a little bit later on, but that's what we'll just do for now. Next thing we're going to do is create a cube. Now the cube is going to be our visor, which seems a bit weird, but when you see it go in, it'll make sense. So I create a cube, and what I need to do is, here it's turned into cube, and if I drag it onto player, it's going to become a child of the player. What that means is whenever I move the player around, the cube will go around with it. Whereas if I move the cube, it doesn't move the player, because it's a child. The parent has control over the child. You make of that what you will, but that's what it's called. Instead of cube, I'm going to call it visor. And this has also got some position, rotation, scale. This one is quite important to get right. So the X is 0, the Y is 0.5, and the Z is 0.24. The rotation is going to stay the same, but the scale also needs to change. So 0.95, then the Y is going to be 0.25, and the Z is going to be 0.5. Now I'm going to actually, for once, put these pictures available to you to access, probably put it up on the screen in my classroom, and Mr. Millicent's classroom can have it on the screen as well, or on the VLE. But what you'll see is now you've got a visor. You can't quite tell, but the actual capsule goes through it, so it looks like it's got two different goggles. When you put some colour on, it'll make more sense. Now we're going to create our cylinder exactly the same way. Game object, 3D object, cylinder. Oh, I clicked the wrong one. Let's delete that. 3D object, cylinder. And we're also going to make this a child of the player. We're going to call it gun, and its position is not going to be 0, 0, 0. It's going to be 0.5, which is how much to the side. It's going to be on the person's right hand. So that's why it's 0.5. On the Y, we are going to leave it at 0. So it's going to be at the center of this person. And the Z is going to be 0.5. So a little bit in front of them. the rotation needs to change here because the gun is pointing up at the moment, which is a bit silly. Instead, we're going to change it on the X to 90. Now, if you really want to, if you're feeling like the person needs a big gun, you can leave it like that, but a little bit more realistic size. If we change the scale to 0.25, the Y scale to 0.5, and the Z scale to 0.25, it looks a little bit more realistic. And finally, what we're going to do is create something called the spawn point for the bullet. So that's where the bullet actually comes out of the gun. So I go again, create empty this time. So game object, create empty. What this means is it's just a placeholder. It's not a code, it's not a light, it's not an object. It is just a place in space to use for whatever you need it to be. And that's going to be the spawn point of where the bullet comes out. Now, it needs to be a child of the player again. You can move it along like this, so it's roughly at the edge point, but the exactly right position is 0.5, 0, and 1. And that would be right at the end of his gun. So we've got this here. It's all grey at the moment, so it looks a bit boring. What we need to do is create some materials. So if I right click here and create material, it creates a new material that we can use on our person. And I'm going to call this first one red. And let's change it to a nice red colour. And that's what you do. You just click on this square in the same way that you would in something like Blender. And I just drag it onto the person. I might also want to create a black material. There we go. You just drag anywhere on that square to pick up the colour. If we go back to this, you'll see the different hues are here, so you can go through all the different hues of colour, and then you can pick where you want. But also with black, it can be on any one, and we just drag that onto the visor. I might leave the gun the way it is. At this stage, you can make as many materials as you want, put them wherever you want them to. You can make them metallic, you can make them smooth. Don't worry about normal map and height map. That's to make it look bumpy. If you've got pictures, you can drag them, I believe, into this section here, and it will create more of a textured material effect. But they're all the sorts of things you can do with the shape. The last thing that we're going to do in this very first video is get the script. Now this is coding. We're going to get the script into here. Now I am just going to see both of these things here. You can, as we did before, copy and paste the code, and this is one we need to use, player controller single player bullet, into the folder. Or what you can do is if I just drag this straight onto the assets here, it will copy it in. If you're doing lots and lots of files, so like with our standard assets with a tutorial, don't do it that way. If it's just one file, you can copy and paste it, or sorry, drag it from your folder straight into here. If you need to know where it is, it's in Unity Assets, and it's just called Player Controller Single Player Bullet. Now, the next video is just going to go through what this code does. Now, if you've got any passing interest in computer science and might want to edit the code, I would suggest you follow the next video closely. If you just want to get on and see how it works, just use it in the program, skip the next video and move on to the third one. So hopefully we're all at the right place. Let's get going.